My name is Ellen Tanouye, and I grew up in San Mateo, California.
And I am Suzie Endow, and I was born and raised in Lodi, California, just south of Sacramento.
My mom would say she's absolutely Nisei, and my dad was Nisei, but actually my mom went back to Japan for a little bit when she was a little girl, and then she came back as a middle schooler, I think, but she says, I'm Nisei, and my dad was too.
My parents also. I always forget what that means because I don't know very much Japanese, and I forget, so I always have to ask her. I don't know what I am.
I grew up in the San Mateo, kind of Japanese, African American ghetto. So you were either Japanese or black. And we went to school together. We grew up together, went to Japanese school together, went to church together. I mean, it was very Japanese. Japanese was spoken in my home growing up. So I'm very used to hearing Japanese, but they didn't want me to speak Japanese because after the war it was like embarrassing or shameful to be Japanese. So they didn't want me to speak it, but I could understand everything.
They sent you to school.
And they sent me to Japanese school, but they didn't want me to speak it fluently. So I just learned how to write it and, how to speak it only in class, and that's about it.
I was born and raised in Lodi, which is very, very white conservative. When my parents were released from the internment camps, they came to Lodi because my uncle, one of my mom's brothers, had a house there, so everybody moved over there and into his house for a while. Well, that would have been in the mid-40s, I guess, right? After the war. And at some point, they had a home of their own with my oldest brother, my sister, who were in camp also. My sister was born in camp. There's a big age range from my oldest brother is 19 years older, my sister's 18 years older, then my next brother is 9 years older. I didn't even hear the term POC, person of color. I didn't know I was a person of color. I always just associated with white people, white friends. I didn't go to the Buddhist church, so I didn't know any Japanese kids my age, so I didn't hang out with any. I always thought I was white. I was white until after the day after Trump was elected, and it was such a shock because you tell that part because it was what happened to you.
I was walking the dog, Angel, and we were just going around town
In Lodi.
And I was crossing the street, and there was this gold-colored Toyota coming, and she was making a left-hand turn, but I was in the middle of the crosswalk, and we connected, with eyeballs, and then she saw me, and then she turned into me on purpose. And she was an old white lady with this gold Toyota. I think it was a Toyota. Anyway, I thought, oh my gosh, she's trying to run me over. She was. So then I had to pull Angel back, and we ran back to the curb, but she was aiming for us. That was terrible. And it was the day after the election.
That was a huge shock to me because Ellen is not one to, exaggerate or joke around or anything like that. And so it was true. What she said was true, and it was just such a huge shock to me because that's when I realized that, I stuck out as a person of color. I was not white. So it was really a wake-up call. I mean, I always knew that Lodi was conservative and not a place that I was proud to say I was born and raised in. But that happening really hit me. Growing up, I always felt different, but I didn't realize that I am different because I was late diagnosed with ADHD. That would also explain my difficulties with learning because I always thought that I was stupid. And I didn't like the Japanese people in town because they were, they were smart, they were quiet, they got good grades, everything that I wasn't. And so I just didn't like them, and I wasn't friends with any of them. But then God is very funny because he put her in my life, and she's like way over the top of what I couldn't stand in Japanese people. I mean, she went to Stanford and Columbia. I went to junior college in Sac State. And yeah, we're so opposite. We're like somebody that we wouldn't even choose to be friends with. My coworker said, she's nothing like I thought you would be friends with. Which is true, because normally somebody like her would just annoy me so much that I would want to stay away.
My mom, just like her parents, never told me that they loved me. But they loved me a whole lot. And I didn't know that until after they're gone. They just did it with actions, and they just did it with how they lived their lives, really basically sacrificing a lot just for me. No Japanese American had, piano, tennis, saxophone, ballet, Japanese,
Baton.
You name it. I had those lessons.
Tap.
They were not cheap, and I didn't know that. We were all poor. In the Japanese black ghetto, we were all poor. Everybody's mom, they were house cleaners, and their dads were gardeners. My dad was a gardener, and so they didn't make a whole lot of money, and so all of my friends, they never got lessons, because they had siblings and everything, and they never got lessons, and I got all the lessons. And so growing up, and after we grew up, being with my high school friends, they go, yeah, I never got to take whatever, because my mom and dad said they couldn't afford it. And I thought, wow, I just got all the lessons in the world. And now, after they're gone, I just think, they love me so much. I'm so lucky. So it was really amazing to me how much they loved me.
I had this, I don't know how to explain it, but like a connection with females, but I didn't, from a young age, but I didn't know what it was, I guess. And then I had a relationship, same-sex relationship, before I was married. I had a secret. I didn't tell anybody that I had this same-sex relationship. I lived a secret until I was 51, and she kissed me.
No, you kissed me. No, you kissed me.
And so I just remember opening my eyes and seeing her face like you see on movies or whatever, where the eyes are just, like closed, and her mouth is just like, and probably her foot was up behind her back, on one leg, and she was probably like that. But I was in such denial of myself that the only thought that I could remember was, oh no, this is not happening. When I got married to my husband, I was 24. I didn't know that I didn't fall in love with him until I fell in love with her. And it's the greatest thing. I've never been happier. We know a lot of people, even in a straight relationship, never experience falling in love with somebody, and it's so special, and so, I think it's so rare, really. There's just this connection, and we're so opposite that we wouldn't even want to have been friends. But it also taught me, with all the racism that came out and hatred and everything, and through all of it, I realized that if you stay away from what you think you don't like, you'll never know what you might be missing. Mm-hmm. And so,
that's our role.
If we had stayed away, this is what we would have missed. God was so much in the picture of my relationship with Ellen, because she's a pastor. She was my pastor, and my husband's and my son's, and I had so many questions about the Bible and everything, and she doesn't mind questions.
I like questions.
So I would ask her so many questions. We'd talk for hours. We'd pull into the driveway after arriving in San Mateo and talk in the car for like 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned so much about myself. She's the one who taught me or showed me why I'm different and the ways that I'm different as far as learning, that I'm not stupid. It was an emotional affair, right? Didn't you feel it too?
Yes, you
Yeah.
were my best friend. Till you
But
kissed me.
I could read her. I can read people pretty well, and I'm the first and only person who ever got behind her brick wall. And I knew that she had that brick wall early on.
I'm good at
And-
compartmentalizing, that's why.
And she did not like that I had any clue about her having a wall. She did not like that, because I guess that made you vulnerable or something.
Yes, I like
So-
to protect myself.
She thinks she's going to be hurt, so she runs.
Yep.
And I knew she was going to do that, and so I wasn't going to let her. And this was just, as friends, because I wanted her to know that you don't have to run just out of your fear of what, may not even be true. I knew that if I stayed married, I'd no longer have a big secret. I would be living a lie. And that's what I realized. And how could I do that? Knowing that I've experienced this different kind of love. I bawled, and I said, I'm sorry, I didn't mean for this to happen, and I don't know what else. But then the next day I told my son, who was face down on the floor in the living room, just listening to me, and I was sobbing and saying I didn't mean for this to happen, and he did this army crawl kind of over to me and worked his way up to the recliner, and he just put his head on my shoulder, and he didn't say anything. One day he was taking me somewhere in his car, and he had his phone, and he had me hold it and played the song Same Love, and it had the lyrics. I'd heard the song, but I never listened to it really, and I read the lyrics along with it, and it just choked me up. And here was my son, who was 14, I think, telling me that it was okay. And in high school, I said, his freshman year, he met new friends and stuff. I said, do they know about me? He goes, yeah. And I thought, really? I was thinking to myself, really? I wonder how that conversation came up, Sophomore year, new friends. Do they know about me? Yeah, Mom, even kids at school, they hold hands and stuff, and that shocked me, because this was the same high school that I went to, conservative, white town. Junior year, I asked him again. He goes, yeah, Mom, it's no big deal, or no, he said, nobody cares. And then senior year, Mom, it's no big deal. So I says, wow, really? And so he just has never treated me differently. He's just been amazing.
Yeah, he's amazing.
He's accepted her.
He calls me Mom.
Yeah. First I said, my other mom, and then he says, now
I
calls
love
me
you, Mom.
Yeah. So that's really special. And he taught me how to accept myself.
I didn't actually come out until I was 60.
One of her sons put us on the spot, said, what's going on here? Big Chicken says, you go first. I said, I fell in love with your mother. And then she says, and I fell in love with Susie.
For the first 4 years after we came out, they told me they didn't want to have anything to do with me. They didn't speak to me. They didn't call me, nothing. Michael was in junior high.
The youngest. He's
the youngest one. So, and then his oldest brother is 18 years older. So, yeah, they were so mad at me. Well, first they were mad at their dad for getting a divorce, but then they were mad at me for being gay. But then my oldest son is
Well,
gay.
but also because I think that you were pastor.
Yeah,
They
see,
saw,
they saw that as, the big
They were
A. Yeah, that was me. And how could I do that? I was a pastor. I was their mom. How shameful. I don't blame them. It's just, it is shameful. I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry now.
I thought I was going to be disowned. And so it turned out that I came out to my father first when he was the last person I wanted to come out to. And it was just amazing, his reaction, because I always wanted to hear my parents say, "I love you." But they never, it's like they choke on those 3 words. I think it's just not possible to come out of their lips. And when I came out, I told my dad I'll be getting a divorce. And then he said, "Who wants it?" And I said, "I do." And then he kind of pursed his lips a little bit. I said, "There's more to it." I said, "I fell in love with Ellen." He said, "Lesbian?" He was 81 at the time, too. He says, "Lesbian?" My family is very well known in Lodi. The name is, and my dad and my brother and my uncle, And I didn't want to cause the shame. And so I said, "I'll change my name if you want me to." And he said, "I'm a pretty liberal guy," he says. And so I just talked for probably 45 minutes, and he just listened. He didn't butt in or anything. And one of the first things I said was that Ellen's boys did not take it well. Ellen was divorced. I was not yet. And her boys didn't take it well, and they stopped spending any time with her, holidays and everything. They were just so mad. And when I told that to my dad, he wiped his cheek like this. I mean, I was side by side, but I saw him do like this, And I told him again before I was going to leave, "I'll change my name if you want me to." I was at the door. And he said, he put his arms out. He says, "What for? I'm going to love you anyway." And I just, to hear those words come out of his mouth, and I ran up to him and I gave him a hug, and he gave me a hug and patted my back. And he says, "You're my baby," So that was the unconditional love shown to me through my dad that God has for everybody, and for me, which was a big deal because I didn't think that God could love me. But so that was God's love shown to me by my dad giving it to me. And because he accepted me is the only reason why I can be my total self, because my dad gave me that "I love you" anyway. We went to Pride, our very first Pride ever, San Francisco Pride. I thought to myself, with social media, somebody could take our picture and we could be out there and not even know it. What would I do if somebody came up and asked if they could take our picture? And so when we were leaving, this man with this huge camera asked us, "Can I take your picture?" And so we said, "Sure." I told that story to my son, and along with that, I told my son, I said, "Don't ever be ashamed of who you are." In one of our conversations, we were talking about the Bible, and I said, "I don't understand." I said, "How can people go to church and be turned away?" I said, "That just doesn't make sense." I says, "Everybody needs hope." And then it clicked to me too, it's like, oh, you have to have hope in something, And so for many people, it would be God. And then for them to go to church and be turned away, because we know we have friends now that they still have that hurt. They're carrying that hurt. They're believing that lie that God doesn't love them because they're gay. And so that's a big part of our message. God loves us, everybody, whether you're gay or not.
But it doesn't even have to be God. It just is for
The higher,
LGBTQ people to be able to know that they are
lovable,
good, lovable, accepted,
and just fine.
And fine just the way they are.
Yeah.
I think that's really a good message for everybody. Doesn't matter if you're Buddhist or Muslim or Christian or whatever. Everybody is lovable and everybody is connected because we're all part of the same human race, and that's what's important.
I know. I thought my dad would disown me, but I can't imagine the hurt and the pain that would be to be disowned, to be,
Families can be very hurtful.
Yeah, I can't
Yeah.
I can't imagine.
Especially Asian families, I think. Because, for Asian families, it's just, that's your whole world practically. And if you're rejected by your family, then where do you go? So Susie and I found refuge in the church in San Mateo, which is probably 90% LGBTQ. And that was not our given family, but our chosen family. And chosen family is just amazing. They love you, they accept you, and you could be who you are. And now, knowing that I am completely me, a whole me, it just makes me freer to be able to step up and stand up and speak out for all people. Everybody needs to be loved. Our Asian group said, we need, a panel to discuss about coming out and churches and faith. And I said, oh, I'll do it.
I said, you don't know anything about being gay.
I know, we had come out just recently. I said, no, but I could do it. So I was a little nervous because I had just come out.
And they wanted the older perspective.
Yes,
that's right. Because we're old,
So I went to the church. Were we going to speak and everything? And I kind of was nervous, so I went early. And then it so happened that the man that used to, he went to my
He was early too.
Yeah, he was early too. And there were just two of us, okay? And so we were chatting about being gay in churches, and you know how churches are not accepting. So he was talking about this other pastor who was about 15 years ago. It was this woman pastor at his church who was very negative and very, against gay people. And I thought, oh, that sounds like me, because I had this church 15 years ago. I go, so what was her name? He goes, oh, I think it was Tanouye. I went, that's me. And then I said, oh my gosh, I am so sorry. I started to share my story about coming out, and I started to cry, and then he started to cry, and then we hugged each other, and it was just an amazing time of just, wow. Somebody I don't know from 15 years ago remembers that, yeah, I was like that as a pastor. We got to love each other. It's really important that we, as people, need to learn how to get along with each other, and we're all connected from here in San Francisco where we're doing this to, I don't know, Africa, the far reaches of the world. We're all connected. And that's our message, is that we need to share that love. It doesn't matter about the faith or anything. Sharing love and kindness, that's the most important thing. So Susie and I have this message to bring to other people, that's what we're all about. And even if they are on the other side of politics that I am not, it's okay. We need to be able to share that love and kindness, even if it's hard to be with them. It's important.
But this is the part that nobody listens to, is love God and love your neighbor as you love yourself.
And sometimes that's the hardest thing to do.
And so I think,
because if
people have issues, and I think they beat themselves up, and they don't love themselves. So you can only love your neighbor, I think,
that much,
to the extent that they're able to love themselves.
Really, we have to. So when I'm totally me, that's so different than being a pastor and having
behind a wall
reserves and saying the message. It's a good message, but you know what? It's not all me. So total me, saying that love is important, is really very different from being able to preach a message from the Bible or wherever. It's just a real message.
From your heart.
Yeah. Let us tell you about when we got married, because it was in Las Vegas in one of the Elvis chapels. Now, before
Spur
the trip,
of the moment.
Yes, before the trip, Susie proposed to me, but she couldn't get on her knee because, she has a replaced knee. But she tried, and so because she did, and I said yes, before the trip, I went to Target. And I was looking for rings, and there were two of them that had a little cross on it, and it was $11.99, or maybe it was $12.99. Anyway, so I got two of them, and so I thought, well, just in case, So then we went
She didn't tell me this.
Yeah. So just in case. And so we went on the trip, and we got to Las Vegas, and I think it was your idea. Just like you kissed me.
No, you're the one who wanted to get married, because I thought, here, in such a
Yeah.
in such an informal,
Well,
because I thought we'd in front of
no.
people that we know. And
I just
stuff.
wanted to get married.
That's just
because
what
you
I thought.
proposed. We got to the Elvis Chapel, and they had the plastic flowers. Okay, and then they said, okay, now we're ready for the minister comes out, and we're ready to do the wedding. And but then we got to talking. She goes, "Oh, you're a minister? Well, you can do the service." So I said, "Okay." Do you remember how we did it?
Well, we were face to face and holding hands, and I think you went first, but I don't.
But we said something about getting married.
Yeah,
and then I don't know if I said scripture or read. I don't think I read scripture.
No, you didn't read anything. We were just looking at each other and saying.
And we just said our vows together.
What was on our heart, whatever.
Yes.
And all I remember saying was, I promised to try to cook more often.
And I think that God was in the picture.
Oh, yeah.
I just said a prayer before, either before or after, or maybe both.
And that's one thing that you just reminded me, that I remember saying that we could do what we could do together for God.
Yes.
I do remember that.
God was in the picture the whole time.
Yeah.
And so we just talked about
in amazing ways
how we promised for each other and for God, how we would live our lives to do that. And that was the reason we were getting married.
Yeah, our union was meant to be bigger than just ourselves.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I love you.
I love you too. Mm-hmm. Well, for me, was you're not stupid or a dumbass. It's okay to ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be embarrassed if, for the way you are. You're worthy and lovable.
Oh, I have to do mine. Okay. I always try hard in whatever I do. So that's not a new thing for me as a 15-year-old. But I think the thing is, I don't need to impress anybody. Not that I was trying to impress anybody, but I think I really made sure that I did all the right things, all the right time. I mean, I wanted to go to Stanford when I was in first grade. So I was like very, regulated and regimented, and I could do all those things. But you know what? That in the end is not very important. What really counts for me as a 50-year-old, I would tell that 15-year-old, you know what? You need to just show that you love yourself. That's hard to do. And you love another person. It could be your mom or your dad or a friend. Just express that love. Because if you don't say it, they're not going to know, really. Because I didn't know till after my parents were gone.
And I wanted to hear it.
Yeah, I didn't get to hear it. They never said it to me, ever.
Because I was not lovable in my mind. So.
Yeah, I knew if I did all those things, they would love me, but they never said it either. So I think my 15-year-old self, I would say, just say I love you more. Just say it. And be open to it, because I'm scared of pain. I don't like to be hurt. But you know what? You need to open your heart. Just open your heart. And whatever it is, even if it's painful, it'll be okay.
Grow from it.
You'll be okay.